Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And on today's show, I've got Eknauth Persaud, and he is a software developer, owns a company, owns some real estate, all kinds of cool stuff. So he's going to tell us some of his successes and how he got to where he's at today. So stay tuned to the show. We'll be right back on in just a second.
Everything you're looking for, it's all in you. You gotta believe that it's all in you. Everything you're searching for, it's all in you.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Eknauth, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I am outstanding. Hey, thanks for having me here. And I'm going to start with the easiest part, which is to pronounce my name for everybody. It's Eknauth, like no pain. So if you didn't work out today, you ache not. So that's, I think it's more of an aspiration these days to ache not. But,
to ache not. Yeah, there's a certain age we get to where it doesn't matter anymore. We just ache, period, no matter what. So it's right around that point in your life when you get out of the chair for the first time and you make that weird little groaning sound. That's where I think it just starts from there and it never gets any better.
I always say, if I have to go pick up something on the ground, just give me something else to do while I'm here.
Yeah. Because I don't want to have to get back up again.
Right.
Come on, man. You are a Marine. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm used to pain and suffering. So there it is. So I usually, it's funny. I tell a lot of guys that are former military or other Marines. I always say, like, if you didn't run a PFT today, so that's our physical fitness test, right?
Yep.
So it's just, 20 pull-ups, 80 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and a 3-mile run in 18 minutes. So the running is a struggle, man. At this point, I was never a runner. I was a ranger, and even that, I was never a runner. So my body was designed to pick big heavy things up and break people. That's what I do best. Running was not a good thing, so I better be a really good shot at whatever I do. So that's good deal.
Well, cool, man. So why don't we get kicked off here? Tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you get to where you are today and your company that you have?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So for those who are not from Texas, you'll be quite unhappy to hear, but I was actually born in New York. But I got to Texas as soon as I could. So I was born in New York City. There's a little country in South America. It's called Guyana. So it's got Caribbean culture. Mm-hmm. We have the best rum. It's El Dorado rum. It's
nice.
It's sipping rum. You just have it neat. And we have lots of oil. And so people, we went, and I've never been to Guyana before. My family was born there, came here in the 60s before I was born.
Okay.
And so I grew up in New York, but, it's Caribbean culture. So anyone from all over the world comes here and they become like fun people. So that's just the nature of it. But I met my wife is actually from Guyana, which is really,
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat story. We were, because I worked in tech. And so, unfortunately, you always do a pilgrimage to San Francisco, right? That's like
you have to. Yeah, it's just a given. Yeah.
Right. So I went about there. And then a buddy of mine that I used to, one of my weightlifting buddies, he was telling me about this Caribbean party. And he said, you should check it out. The girl who's hosting it is also from Guyana. Well, that wasn't my wife who was from Guyana, but she was at the party. But when I met her, I just kind of chased her around because she was hot. And then eventually, she ran out of energy and talked to me. But it turns out that we just started talking, and I had no idea she was from Guyana until the host of the party says, hey, leave at the cafe to find the only Guyanese boy here at the party, right? And we're like, what, you? So, yeah. So it's just great from a cultural perspective.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, it was meant to be at that point.
It is. And I said to her, I said, hey, my name is Eknauth. It's Eknauth like no pain. She says, my name is Kaffee. It's like taffy with a K.
I love it.
We both had a shtick for our name. So
yeah, exactly. So and you could do each other's shtick at the party then at that point.
Exactly. So it was awesome. So we but yeah, so I met her there, but the name of the first business right here, I think I'm in the shirt here, but it's Ayoka. It's Ayyoka.
Okay.
That's actually her middle name. So I named it after her.
Oh, cool.
It's a West African word. It means one who brings joy to all, and that's what we call the company.
So she lives up to her name, is what you're saying.
She absolutely does. It's an inspiration. I think her first name means quiet, but I really think
Yeah.
that's an aspiration, really.
Quiet one who brings fun to everybody. So
Exactly. So but we met. That was what back in '01. So yeah,
okay.
back in 2001. So
Okay.
we got married in 2003.
Okay.
We had a very long 3-day engagement. I asked her to marry me on the 14th of February. And then we were married on the 17th. We tried to elope in Vegas, but
Cool.
her family crashed. So we did have a few people at
You
Caesar
tried.
Palace.
You tried, but I mean, at least you got married in Vegas. You can say that. Check that one off the
Exactly.
list.
Nice. I
Now,
take that one off.
if you were married by a Guyanese Elvis, that would have been perfect. I mean, that
Oh
would
my
have been
God.
everything.
That was great. That was great. He never, you know what's so weird? Elvis never showed up.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Well,
he was
I mean, if you go to the Elvis Chapel, my wife and I were our 25th anniversary. We were married at the Elvis Chapel by Elvis, so
Nice.
it has to
Okay.
be done. I mean, it was just like right there. Now the next one, we're remarried in Hawaii, just to say we've been married in Hawaii. So
Well, I like this idea of having
yeah,
multiple marriages.
yeah,
I mean, to the same person. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I keep having to just let her know, okay, yeah, you're going to be stuck with me for the rest of my life. So, you know, or the
well, let
rest
me
of
say
your
the
life.
rest of your life.
Yeah. It's a given. I mean, she's gonna kill me or something before it's all over with. But
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
hilarious. Yeah, she is.
So you were out in California and working for others. What made how'd you make the shift to your own little
So
world?
I'll tell you. So you know, she asked me a really poignant question the night we met. She said, "So what's your plan for life? What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to either take over a business
Okay.
or maybe start one by myself." I
Hmm.
said, "But I would much rather take over a company. It's a move from a so-called cubicle warrior into, some other position of responsibility,
Sure.
and or start a company." But I just was like, I don't really want to start a company. I underestimated, thankfully, how hard that and painful that would be. So,
Yeah.
it's worse than I realized. But that's what I communicated as a plan. And at the time, I was working for another company. I was working at Siemens Energy and Automation,
Okay.
and they
Yep.
shut down the business unit I was with. So I was laid off.
Hmm.
But I had done some previous work in this weird little industry that I was in. It's called Intelligent Transportation Systems, or ITS. It's kind
Okay.
of an oxymoron, but basically just the application of technology to transportation. So I had done some
Makes
work
sense.
in there. A
Yep.
few people knew me, and then since I was, they shut down the business unit I was in. Someone who had known about me said, "Hey, go consult for this other Siemens business unit."
Hmm.
And so, one gig led to the next. And then, before I knew it, I was like, oh, I guess I'm in business now. And, to get going, they're like, hey, you need to give your company a name. So what do you want to do? So I named it after my wife at that point.
Hmm.
And it was just really consulting services, right? And then we won a large job at DFW Airport. So we did
Okay.
the integration of all the IT systems in Terminal D. So it was a big
Nice.
deal, right? So we so if you kind of look at the timeline, it's like the 14th I asked her to marry me,
Yeah.
17th of February we get married. She doesn't like Valentine's Day, which is why I picked the 14th, by the way. And then so the 17th we get married, and then about a week later we find out we win the job at DFW Airport. So we
Okay.
moved to Dallas, and I had capital then, so in the sense of like marriage capital, like
Yeah.
it just goes exponentially downhill once you get married for a few days. But so we moved out here, and that's where like I said, we lived in Uptown for
Yep.
quite a bit in that area of Dallas. And then now we have two Texans. Our boys were both born here,
All right.
and we love it. We love living in Texas. I think I mentioned as we were just getting to know each other that our church that we go to is in Dallas, and so we do. We were doing a lot of driving from Fort Worth out to Dallas once the kids were born, So we decided to come back to Dallas so we could be, we're down 10 minutes from the church, which is pretty awesome
Yeah.
for the kids as they're growing up in it. So,
Yeah.
but
That's
yeah, so
cool.
that's the
Yeah.
unofficial start was really being able to start. The consulting is what kind of led to the business. And as we started picking up gigs that way, then we started hiring people. And so I would love to pretend I came in with an intentional plan to go build a business. I just had to get laid off to move
Yeah,
to
just fine.
Buffalo.
It's sometimes you need something to make you take that step at that point. And I mean, I think for those that are out there that maybe have technical skills and things like that you did, that's maybe not a bad step, is to stay in the industry you're in, just have your own business doing it, go out and consult, which I think for some people that can be a challenge because they've got that maybe good paying job inside of a company, but maybe there's that opportunity to, a layoff happens or a riff happens or something like that. You can go look for another job, or you can just go out there and apply your services, use your network at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's a huge part is just building that network while you are working at a company.
Yeah.
Build your reputation. Work a little harder, build a reputation,
Hmm.
get to know people. I was very fortunate in that the type of project work that I did, because I was more in program management, I had a chance to just interact with people in just
Sure.
different departments, different groups. I could, I was hiring, different subcontractors to work for the company I was at. And so through those relationships, the people, the companies that, so if you subcontract out to another company, then you're typically dealing with some of their management team in that
Hmm.
process. And if, you work, treat people fairly and, keep everyone kind of on track with the mission, I think people start to see that and they start to build a genuine respect for you. And so your network starts to sort of naturally develop just through, the work and the interactions that you have.
Hmm.
And, today it's even easier to stay in touch, right? We've got LinkedIn, we've got,
Yep.
good phones versus what we had back in the day.
Yeah.
And, we can remember to just stay in touch with people and see what,
Well, and I mean, that's something that I think over the last, I mean, I look at the network I built on LinkedIn. I mean, I remember coming to Austin, and I'd worked for a very large financial services firm for, at that point, 17 years. And, I mean, my LinkedIn, I got involved in LinkedIn really early on. And, I think I left Dallas with maybe 300 people in my LinkedIn at that
wow.
point, and over the next 14 years built up a network of like 25,000 people on my LinkedIn. And of course everybody that I was connected to was in my same industry, in the financial services industry that I was connected to. And it was a conscious effort over the next 14 years to just continue to grow and build that network, which, I mean, today that's my net, my net worth is my network at that point. I mean, I can, if I were to, if my businesses all went away overnight, I feel very confident within a few days I could connect up with enough people that I could find a job somewhere doing what I
Right.
do best, So I would say my advice, and I think your advice to a lot of people is, while you're still at work and you're building whatever it is that you are going to use to exit from what you do, spend some time working in LinkedIn, connecting to a lot of people, because you never know when you're going to need that. And it sounds like you had it at the perfect time for, okay, I'm out of Siemens, but then I literally can walk back in the door, making more than likely more than what you were making before.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much better, and it's very satisfying because now you're sort of unencumbered to produce the results that you want.
Yeah.
And this is the part that I enjoy the most about really having a business or being in a place where you're taking responsibility for the outcome. Is
Hmm.
that we want a certain outcome. We're driving ourselves toward that, and now you can pursue that in a very unfettered way, right? There's
Yeah.
not a lot of bureaucracy to go about it. A big thing for me, and I finally was able to articulate this here. Actually, it was the Marine Corps that helped me articulate it. But this whole concept of commander's intent,
Hmm.
the thing that I always wanted to do was not what people wanted, but what they needed. And to me, it was always being able to discern what their higher purpose was, because you
Mm,
can't ever ask someone, "Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Um, what would you like this to look like?" It was all
mm,
about being able to ask them questions about their situation, what they loved, why they did what they did, what did they try before, what worked out really well that they were proud of, and what are some things, if they could wave their magic wand, that they would change. So it's a series of questions you can ask, and you can always ask the same questions again and again. And it's just remarkable when you hear the answers come back. Because what
mm,
people start to do is they start to get to know you. What they're revealing is a little bit about their situation, but you're starting to uncover what they would want something to look like. You're helping
mm,
them develop and see that vision. And so now, with that in mind, you can start building out your plan, which is what that commander's intent is all about, is being able to form that strategy that helps them meet that vision. And as you're kind of anticipating what their next needs are, there is nothing more satisfying than that. And I always got a great deal of satisfaction with that in things that I did, even as a kid, right? Just being able to think ahead, right? As you might say, right?
yeah,
And to be able to apply that in your own business, and to be able to do that as an entrepreneur, as a business founder, is absolutely exciting. It's intoxicating because you can finally serve people in a way that they really need. And when
hmm,
you see that light bulb go on, sometimes it could take a long time, but they look back and they say, "Wow, thank you for taking me on this journey, because I never knew I was going to get here." Or you saw things along the way and you discouraged me from certain steps
hmm,
because you saw something before I did.
yeah,
And it's a very trainable skill, by the way, Jeff. That's the coolest part. Is what I found is, just as it was in the Marine Corps, right? We're taking people from all walks of life, all classes, all backgrounds, and we're able to kind of meld that same culture together and these same principles of leadership with commander's intent, with esprit de corps, with all of the things that we are. The friendly word is indoctrinated with as Marines,
yeah,
right? Um, all of these things that we're able to kind of merge together in people's heads, it shows you how trainable this skill
sure.
is. And that's really what I feel like we've been able to bring to our what we call our core developers, or our sort of management team, is to take that culture and then bring it forward. And to me, when you're kind of taking this first step in your journey, you have to start to do this. You have to turn this on yourself
Hmm,
and really start asking yourself these same questions, like, hey, you know, what is, what am I really proud of? Where have I been? What do I really like? What are the choices I made in the past that I feel really good about? What are the things that, maybe I might look at it a little differently? But you always start with the positive,
hmm,
and then start to think about, what could it look like, without necessarily being that self-critical, which, I can admit I challenge myself with my
oh
own
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, we all are. I mean, that's being an entrepreneur. So what,
Yeah.
as you have gone out, I mean, you successfully launched a business and, have continued to grow and build that business. What do you consider, I think you shared some of that, but what do you consider also has been your success? What's kept you going? I mean, because quite frankly, 50% of businesses are typically gone within 5 years, and you're working on what, 25 at this point?
Yeah, it's been a minute, right? So, thank God for the customers, we have, and just the opportunities, right?
Hmm.
Because it's just, to me, if you don't have I'll say this: if you don't have a lot of faith now, just be in business for a little bit, and then you'll find
Yeah.
yourself really growing
Yeah.
that muscle, right? Um, so I definitely thank God for a lot of that, and I think, in a way, you start to realize you're kind of wired up to do some of what you are doing, right?
Hmm.
And as you start to take that step back and you say, I like this type of problem solving that I do, or why these are elements of my, if you're currently employed somewhere, you could say, these are the elements of my job that I enjoy the most. This
Hmm.
is kind of what excites me to do this week. And as you start kind of honing in on those parts that are really satisfying, I think, through your week, then those are the points that, those are the same things that I think within business you get excited by. I'm not excited to do bookkeeping. So, and I'm
That was
not
my
excited
very
to,
first hire with all my businesses, was a good bookkeeper, because I absolutely despise bookkeeping. I enjoy accounting because I enjoy the, okay, if we did this, we get this. But the actual process of bookkeeping, I'm glad to pay any amount of money for somebody else to do.
I'll tell you, it is, yeah, it is just one of those awful things. But you're absolutely right. The strategy part is, it sounds like
Yeah.
what you're really into, right? Like, what is the strategy of, how do I, so let me take a step back, right? One of the things that, we talked about, like, as a kid, people would say, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Right? You could say, "I want to be a fireman. I want to be a cop. Maybe an astronaut." Right? That'd be cool. But I really wasn't asked, "What's your wealth strategy?"
Yeah.
And I only recently started thinking about that. Like, what is your wealth strategy? Then you start to say, "Well, what is wealth?"
Yeah.
And I think that's really when your monthly income is exceeding what your monthly expenses are, and
Mhm.
that's your freedom day,
Yeah.
where that you talk about a lot, which is, how do I get there, right? And then I started thinking, well, what are the different ways of generating wealth? And
Mhm.
I mentioned to you, I think I love, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, one of my
Mhm.
favorite books. Well, his CPA is Tom Wheelwright.
Yep.
Tom Wheelwright has a book called Tax Free Wealth.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Excellent book.
it's a great book, isn't it? And I love Tom Wheelwright. He's like way into taxes. His passion is
Mhm.
unmistakable.
Yep.
As he says, fun is in the middle of taxes because it's in the tax refund. So that's my paraphrasing his joke. But it's really cool because he talks a lot about that strategy, and he talks a lot about that advice, and he talks about 4 ways in your wealth strategy, right? And one of them, obviously, forming your own business is one, right? So that's
Mhm.
one way toward getting toward that freedom day. I think the other one is, you can maybe you can invest in something in real estate, right? You can
Mhm.
invest in real estate. You get great tax benefits, depreciation, etc. um, you get leverage, which
Mhm.
is super important. So that's another way.
Yep.
The third way is something like, like commodities, right? So you think about, oil and gas or
Mhm.
minerals or something from the earth, right? Like
Yeah.
agriculture, whatever, right? And if that calls to you, that's a third way to build wealth. And I think the fourth way you talked about was paper, right? So, and that
Mhm.
could include, trading notes. It could include even crypto, right? It could be
Yep.
virtual, trading stocks, right? So he kind of put things into these 4 categories that resonated with me, toward, hey, which of these 4 ways kind of resonates with you? Like, how are you wired up to be, and what really appeals to you? For some
Mhm.
people, they're all about, I'm going to go form my own business and build a company. I
Yeah.
want to either manufacture a widget. I want to be able to do something with e-commerce, whatever it is, right? I'm going to do custom software development, which is painful.
Mhm.
Caution you against that. But there are these different avenues, different types of businesses you can form, and some people are really driven toward that, and some people really love real estate. Um, so to me, it's really a question about kind of figuring out what resonates with you.
Mhm.
I've never understood oil and gas and the commodity side too well, so I've never really done a lot of investments there. But
Yeah.
on the investment side, we will provide capital into real estate projects, and we
Mhm.
will do private money lending, which is essentially
Sure.
notes. And so those resonate with me because those areas will build up passive income,
Mhm.
because you can get your monthly interest payments if you're doing a
Sure.
private money loan, or you can get rental income, of course, if you have a property. And so those are kind of neat because once you get the ball rolling, once you do the underwriting and get the ball rolling, you don't have to quite work so hard.
No.
But on the business side, you're either, coming in, or really keeping your eye on things. Unless you bring an operator in, then it's really hard to get that same level of independence. So being able to get a freedom day, take a day off, take a month off or a year off,
Yeah.
feels really unreachable when you're in that small business state.
Well, it is. I mean, and it was for me. I mean, that was the funny part for me. I got into business 10, 11 years ago, and for 6 of those years, or it's almost 8 of those years, quite frankly, I mean, it was just you get up every day, go to work, get up, go home, go to bed, get up, go to work, same thing. And for 6 of those, of those years, it was really me working 70, 80 hours a week, because I was trying to run multiple businesses, and pretty much we're all underfunded, and meant my wife and I had to do a lot of the work with a couple of employees here and there. And, I mean, in 2022, when my business partner decided to buy me out, we'd grown a nice wealth management practice up. And, we were just at a point in time where we were kind of going two different ways. And, I think at some point I will write a book called How to Piss Off Your Partner Enough to Get Them to Buy You Out. But I mean, it was a point where we were both wanting to go two different directions. And, honestly, it was the best gift I ever got, because it kind of separated me from that grind that I was in and opened up my mind to where it's like, okay, I don't really have to worry about money. I mean, if I decided to take a year off and just not work, I could do that. And that's a freeing thing, because it opened my mind up immensely. So, I worked super hard for the first year because I couldn't get myself out of that mode. And I was telling, I think the gentleman I interviewed before you, I mean, I basically took the last year off. I mean, I managed and took care of clients' money that I have, but I didn't really add any new clients over the last year, for the simple fact that I just really needed a year to kind of figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up at that point. And that's a beautiful position to be in. I mean, if I had decided to sit on the front porch and whittle wood for a year, I'd have been fine. Financially, it would have been no different for me at that point. But it's given me a year to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. Here's how I want my businesses to look. I've got some very specific goals that I'm working on over the next 4 years to free up our business to where I don't necessarily have to be in one physical location all the time. I proved some things this last year that, I could do a lot of the stuff that I do from anywhere in the world, as long as I had an internet connection. And, that's a really freeing thing. It allows us to check off some of those bucket list things that we've wanted to do. So, I'd encourage everybody to think that way. What can you do? If you own a business and you're like I was, and you're spending 80 hours a week slugging it out in that business, what can you do to start extracting yourself from the business, allowing other people to run the show, and then putting yourself in a position to where the business is running and you can step to the side and say, okay, I don't own a job anymore. I own a business that's running by itself, and I can now focus my efforts and thoughts on something else.
That's fantastic. Yeah, to be able to do that is one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Our step one on this has been, and like so many things, it feels like I stumbled accidentally into it. But I mean, in the sense of like, I wasn't smart enough to figure it out, right? But so this is, so a couple of things happened. So back in 2020, obviously with the whole COVID lockdown and everything.
Sure.
We needed something to do, right? Because a lot of our customers said, hey, we're going to put a pause on your work. And so we had said, okay, well, if we built, you this product, right? Could you help, sell it to your clients? Because it was more, more of this virtualized element to it, right?
Okay.
So one of our customers is, yeah, sure. So we built it speculatively, right? On our own nickel. We said, y'all can, either, rent it or just pay a royalty to use it, right? And we did that, and we actually made money. And we're like, wow, for the first time,
Wait a minute here.
gone from a pure services company to having a product. And we're like, son of a gun, having a product makes money. But the way we deliver the product was a little weird, right? Like if I were to deliver you a regular product, I would say, hey, here's an ice cream cone, knock yourself out, and I'm done, transaction over. But with the way or a software product, like, yeah, here, subscribe to Salesforce.
Yeah.
They don't even talk to you. You basically, you click on the ad, you go to the page, you hit buy now, and then you go. And then if you need help, you can then maybe hire a Salesforce consultant to kind of show you what to do.
Yeah.
But to me, that was a problem. So we said, no, we've got a different way to go about doing this here. And when we built our product back in 2020, when we needed something to do during the whole COVID lockdown, we're going to build this product, but we're going to deliver it differently. We're going to deliver it in a done-for-you model, because that's all we knew.
Yeah.
Literally all we do is a custom software company. And so we said, okay, well, we will customize it to your workflow. We're going to engineer it in a certain way. So it's very, very flexible because we know the parts that people want to change and we know the parts that can remain the same.
Mm.
So it's kind of like building a car, right? Like I'll pick on Toyota for a moment, right? It's the same 3-liter V6
Mm.
that they've had forever, and they put it in a whole bunch of different cars, whether it's
Sure.
a Camry or a Lexus, it doesn't really matter. An SUV or a sedan, same engine, same transmission, same underpinnings. They just put it in different things because the things that people want to change that create a very different experience, they understand that. And so we did the same thing in our software. We just kind of built the engine, and then we made it very highly flexible on top. And then we found out people really like this. We save the money, but we also are able to make money too, which is kind of a win-win. That's what our good customers always say. We want you all to be profitable because we need you to continue to be available to support us in business. So we sort of stumbled into that during lockdown, and then we said, we were selling more of it to the point where we said, you know what, we're going to branch this business off. We're going to leave IOCA as custom software services. We're going to have a product company. It's called rentmysoftware.com. So you can just type in rentmysoftware.com. It kind of makes sense. And this is a highly personalized system. It's an enterprise system that runs your business, but it's tailored to your workflow. And instead of paying to build it from scratch, you just basically, you rent it. So you rent custom software.
And you provide the service to implement that software to get it all, set up, and then, whatever adjustments need to be made down the road.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is it's your imagination, not ours.
Okay.
So if you were to buy like a Salesforce product, or if you were to buy SAP or NetSuite or whatever it is, right? It's always their imagination, not yours.
Yeah.
But our principle is commander's intent. So we have to make it for you because that's our culture. We're sort of wired up that way.
Yeah.
And so we said, we're going to go ahead and start doing this product. We're going to make it tailored for you. And we're able to save you a ton of money because we've got a starting point already built. And so for people who are looking to build something custom, we always tell them, look, you can save 75, 80% off of building it from scratch if you use this as a starting point.
Yeah. And then just tweak it wherever it needs to be tweaked. And, whatever the unique needs are of your business. Okay, let's tweak it to fit the unique needs of your business. But you've spent all the money already developing the backbone of it, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. So we were super
shocking
excited.
to me that more of that isn't done today, quite frankly. I think it's a amount of laziness, but yeah.
I think it's a culture issue, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think, the more the world pushes AI and automation, and the more software developers oftentimes don't want to talk to humans.
Yeah.
So their whole goal is, how can I supplant this human interaction by either making you do it? Like, I don't like to self-serve gas, but I know that's a thing. So back in the 70s, it wasn't, right? As a kid, you'd pull in and they'd fill your gas and do your windshield.
Then it went half and half, so you paid a few cents more to go to the thing where the guy actually, did your windows and all that. And
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, I kind of like it when they did the stuff for you, but now you got to pump your own gas and everything else. And so the point is, there's a lot of unfriendly people in software.
Yeah.
So the more tech and the more AI happens, then that means less human.
Yep.
But what we're trying to go is toward the opposite way. We're trying to go more human. And so the more done for you, the more human, the more we can take care of things for people. Where we can interview the business owner, the business leader, discern their commander's intent, and then make all the changes on their behalf. They don't even need to do anything. We want to make this as easy as possible to get you onboarded. And then we get it and we tailor it to your imagination, not SAP's, not Sage, not NetSuite, not any of these other people.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then now our customers are happy because they can finally see their imagination come to life.
Yeah.
And it's easier to onboard and train their people because it's following their workflow, not someone else's. And they can start cutting down these different subscriptions as well, because they've oftentimes, they got out and they've subscribed to all these different SaaS products. They can't really connect them all together, or they're using spreadsheets in the middle, whatever. A lot of that can go away. And that makes us super excited because now we're a partner, we're with them. And that's the second business that we're building up. And the cool thing about it from a corporate perspective is that, look, we need to sell a volume of these rent custom software solutions.
Okay.
We don't, this doesn't sustain on one, right? And so the goodness for our customers is that they're only paying a fraction of what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can put together these fractions as we've been doing, then everyone sort of wins. And then now we have passive income. And when you have passive income or subscription income, you now start building your business toward a freedom day.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, but that's the part that I had missed in doing just services. Services businesses are great to get off the ground. So if you're working at a company today and you have a particular trade or a craft or a skill and you have a network that you've been building, maybe you can do some side hustles and get going, right? And then you can move from the side hustle to kind of putting out your own shingle and saying, hey, it's so-and-so consulting services. And you're building it from there. And you really can start looking at that and saying, I've got one of two ways now. I can continue to grow on the consulting services side, hire more people as we did, right? As we started picking up work, we've got about 35 employees now, mostly in Texas. And, we've got a Colorado office and a couple people up there. But, you can build that way, but it's still, you're still coming in. Now you've got the small business and now you're coming in to work every day. And now you're your own, you're your own.
But I mean, in the services world, I mean, I see that from a wealth management perspective. There's people that are on more of the commission side of the business that, I mean, it's literally, it's a never ending. Yeah. It's just, you're on this treadmill constantly and you're never building anything that, one, is a value that you could sell some point, or two, that you could stop, and take a year off, versus, the registered investment advisory side of our business, where, okay, I mean, as I build my book of clients, I have a consistent flow of revenue coming in. So, as long as I service the clients, as long as I place trades when I need to, I can be anywhere in the world. I can take time off in between. There's a multitude of different things. And so I think every business needs to be thinking about that. There's a great book that Russell Brunson put out, I think in the last year or two, called The Linchpin, that I think you can buy relatively cheap. Just Google Russell Brunson Linchpin. It's really where he talks about how he grew ClickFunnels, his software company, based on using this linchpin concept, which was, give them the software to start with and then get them hooked on it. And then they have to keep using it over time and you build your business. So you've done very much that same thing.
That's really good. I'm definitely going to look up that book because that is, I think the cool part about what we're trying to do is it's flexible. So we could start with a small problem. We could do some, as long as we're doing good, in excess of whatever it costs, then we'll be invited to do more. But if we're not serving someone well, we often, I mean, we've been doing this for like 20 plus years on the custom software side. So I always tell people, look, don't hire us. If we can't produce returns, then just tell
you're
us
going to be
away.
unhappy. We're going to be unhappy at that point.
Exactly. And we will let you know and we've had to tell people over the years, like, look, I think you have a training problem. I think you have a people problem. You don't have a technology problem.
Sure.
So let's start building. Your systems are not technology. Your systems are just your basic practices. And it's really teaching people what those basic practices are, building in that, instilling the regularity or that discipline of what they need to do in their day to day. As we get that going, now we can start getting consistent. You're going to be looking at things, right? And it's going to be information. It's going to be data. Now we can start building a database design. But, once again, let's not put the technology ahead of the people. And let's really think about that vision you have and then those processes that you're going to put into place to really help that vision come to life.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Well, let's transition into the fast 5 questions. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So, first question, you wake up in the morning, your business is completely gone. You have $500, laptop, computer, place to stay. What would you do first?
I would start consulting again. I would start the services
Worked the
business
first
again.
time.
It worked the first time, and I think that honestly, I still run into people that just would love to just say, "Hey, can you, be our CTO or something like
Okay.
that? Can you be
Yeah.
our kind of our technology strategist or something?" Right. So I would absolutely start on the services side. Start with what we know, what I know, and I would argue again that commander's intent is the philosophy that people don't necessarily, if they haven't served, they don't know that phrase,
Hmm.
but they feel like once they're getting it, they realize that they've been missing something all along.
Yeah. It's that one thing. All right. What's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
So I got too many dumb things, man. Um, so we had a longtime customer back in the day that was exiting. This is early stage of our services company. They were exiting their product business. They had hired us to be their software company to help them build and maintain their product that they were
Okay.
selling to others. But they were getting out of that business. And they said, "Hey, we will give you the business and all of the recurring revenue. And we'll even kind of help you during that transition with the clients."
Yeah.
So, in
Yeah.
my glorious
They're
wisdom,
like, I got
said,
nothing to lose here.
yeah. And I said, "Man," I said, "my glorious wisdom, we're a services company. We're not a product company. So,
Yeah.
thanks. But, thanks, Randy, but can't do it." And so yeah, so that was a dumb thing. And I've
Yeah.
got a whole list of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you eventually got there in a different way. You just had to build it all yourself. What's a good book that you'd recommend for our audience?
Can I recommend three?
Absolutely.
Okay. So my first one would be Rich Dad Poor Dad by
Yep.
Robert Kiyosaki. I learned the difference between an asset and a liability in that book
Hmm.
and recognized that my house is the number one liability we have.
Number one liability. Absolutely.
Did not know that. And then I learned how to read a balance sheet, which, as you know, I hate accounting, but I like the
Yep.
strategy of accounting. And so he
Yep.
taught me that. So that's book number one, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Book number two, I would recommend is The Richest Man in Babylon
Yep.
by George S. Clayson. So if you're working in a business right now, you're working for a company, then his practice is basically set aside like 10%, save it toward deploying in other capital. Mike McAllowitz, in my opinion, took that concept away with pay yourself first, where you
Mm.
do profit first,
Profit
right?
first.
That
Yep.
model was cool. And then, but the third book then I would recommend is R. Nelson Nash, Becoming Your Own Banker.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I love Becoming Your Own Banker, and I have over the last few years, I have like about 6 of those IBC policies,
Mhm.
and they have been really good for leverage that I can deploy and make money from on the investment side. So those are the 3 books,
Absolutely.
and many more I would recommend.
Yep. Yeah, I would add cash flow quadrant to that because it's the one, it's that next step above, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But yeah, I mean that's another one that it's on my list of the top 10 books that helped me get financial freedom. Those two books, Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, really are responsible for probably 80% of where I'm at today as a result of
Wow.
it. So I love Kiyosaki's books before he went off the deep end and got crazy. But he was there. There was a period of time where he was really rational and put out some really good stuff. So
Yeah, I think he's been warning about recession and war
yeah,
and all this
for
kind of
for
stuff.
like the last 25 years, and it doesn't work so well. So
No. Yeah, it's hard to be a future teller.
yeah, yeah, it's very difficult. So just stick with what you can control and what you can't. So last question for you. Well, one more question. What is a tool that you use in your business every day that you'd recommend?
Chat GPT, my friend.
Oh, you are the fourth person in a row.
It's
I think
fantastic.
we've changed. We finally turned the corner because for the first 2 years of its existence, I don't think I had a single person say Chat GPT, and now it's 4 people in a row that I've heard this from.
That's hilarious. My wife is really the pioneer in this here. She was the one that
Okay.
said you should really start working with this.
Yeah.
and she's a very strong writer, very capable writer as it is, and so she was using it to accelerate. But what she taught me was it's about iterating. It's about
Mhm.
being able to know that you're going to ask 7 or 8 different ways along the way. You ask, you get a result. You ask
Yeah.
again, get it, and just continue to tweak it.
Mm.
So it's really that ability to iterate is what ChatGPT does. It
Well,
isn't
and
about one and done.
I spent multi thousands of dollars to learn one very small thing about ChatGPT that I'll give everybody for free, and that is where ChatGPT is the strongest when you give it permission to ask you questions. So every time I put a prompt into ChatGPT, I always finish that up with, and what questions do you have before we get started? And it will spit out a list of, 20 or 30 different questions that it would like answers to. And when you answer those and you say go, boom, you get something that is absolutely customized to exactly what you want. So when people say, "Well, it's not that good," it's because you aren't giving it 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 does not have the option to ask you questions until you give it permission.
That is really
It
interesting. I'm going
is.
to remember that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it once again, I spent thousands of dollars through a couple courses learning that one very thing, and that has changed everything. I wrote 10 books this year, um, and they everyone got better and better and better as I used that concept.
Wow.
So it's
That,
pretty awesome. Yeah. Last question for you. What is your definition of freedom?
you know, I think to me, freedom is being able to fund all of those unfunded ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As a, my wife and I have been doing this since like we met, right? Because we met, like I said, in '01, right? So this is right around, the whole .com
Mm-hmm.
era stuff. And we'd always come up with these, like, what we thought were clever ideas. And some of them we've actually seen come to life, right? Like the Ember mug, right? That was like something we kidded about because
Mm.
we always wanted our coffee at a certain temperature.
Yeah.
Um, and, and so just little things like that have later come into being, right?
Yeah.
But it's the ability to be able to fund these unfunded ideas. It's just super important. I think for us as well, teaching, capitalism and faith. I think those are intertwined concepts. I
Mm-hmm.
think R. Nelson Nash really threads those two concepts together because we're all one
Absolutely.
person. And so to me, that is like our dream is to someday being able to bring those together and really bring it into communities where I think that there is not a lot of capitalism being taught,
Yeah.
or right. And I just think,
Which quite frankly, I would say most communities it's not being taught. I mean, I participate in a program through the local high school that we have where I coach young entrepreneurs. I mean, they actually have an entrepreneurs class that
wow,
they go through that's from the beginning of their junior year through the senior year. They can qualify to be part of this program, and they literally work as teams to start businesses during that time period, and it's all based on the the lean startup concept and everything else. So I mean, these kids are learning stuff that, I mean, you and I, it took us 20, 30 years to figure out. They're learning this before they even get out of high school.
wow, I
So
love that. I would love to
there's
see a
not
lot.
enough of those programs around. That's the problem.
I agree, right? And I think in the communities that need it the most, like I said, we live in East Dallas. We live in
Yep.
a nice little enclave here, but I mean, we're part of the community, right? And so
Yep.
there's all sorts of neighborhoods here where I think that there's just not enough discussion
No.
about business and capitalism and how virtuous it is, right, for people,
Mhm.
because this is what has brought people. I'm I come from very modest ways, right? So
Mhm.
it's a fancy way of saying I was broke growing up,
Yeah.
but when you start kind of like that, you need a shot at something, and that knowledge gives you a shot at doing
Yeah.
something.
Well, the knowledge and seeing other people that, like, okay, I didn't come from tons of money. I mean, I I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. I mean, I have one relative out of all my relatives that ever started a successful business, and I'm the other weird one in the family. that's, I mean, I didn't come from that world. I came from the world of you work hard, you get a good job, you go to school, you get a good job, you work there for 40 years and then you retire, and that then you begin to live life. Well, no, I didn't want that. That's not what my goal was in life. And I just charted a different path. And for a while my family was looking at me like I had two heads, but now they see I continue to do well and continue to figure out ways to make money and change and adapt our business to what our goals are.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and that sometimes it's an uphill battle when you don't have a lot of support or
Yeah.
understanding, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was the kid that used to work at company X,
Yeah.
right? It
Yep.
was never, hey, here's kind of what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
And, and I think, for our kids, thankfully, they get to see it, right? They've seen, you know, they've seen struggles and moments of difficulty, right? They've been part of all of that, and they've seen good times as well. And I think it's important for them that they really get an honest,
Sure.
just visibility as to what it really means like to be in business.
Yeah.
It's not all roses,
Nope.
but it's incredibly gratifying, and I think it's fulfilling. I think that's the word. It's not, life isn't about happiness. I tell the kids it's about being fulfilled, and
Mm-hmm.
being fulfilled is trying to discern kind of what your purpose is. And once you're kind of carrying out what you're created for, I think it just starts to, it just feels a whole lot better, and you feel a lot more, I don't know, a lot less empty, I think. So
Makes total sense. Yeah. Well, Eknauth, or yes, Eknauth. Gosh, you're Eknauth. Jeez, that's killing me here. Thank you for being on the show, man. I just truly enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to continuing to keep up with you on this stuff. If somebody's interested in learning a little bit about your company or any of the stuff you do, what's the best way?
there's a couple spots, right? You can go to rentmysoftware.com.
Okay.
That's where you can kind of rent the product, but you can also go to find me on LinkedIn. If you
Okay.
actually were to type in my name, Eknauth, I mean, there should only be
There's probably only going to be one of you, I'm guessing.
exactly. And you can just, or
Well,
you can
we'll
just
also
Google
put that. Yeah,
Eknauth Marine, and there it is. So
we'll put that link down in the show notes, folks, so you can find it really easily. Thank you for being on the show, my friend. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you. This is the last show of the year, so we went out with a bang. Folks, a lot of good stuff coming up in 2025. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm actually finishing up the editing on the Retirement Trap book, the Freedom Day story, which is coming out. And by the time you hear this, it will be available. So go to freedomdaymethod.com, and the book will be listed there, and you can buy it directly from there on Amazon. So thanks a lot. Some really cool stuff coming up after the beginning of the year. We are establishing our own online community just for Freedom Nation. So you'll hear more about that as we get all that stuff into place here in the first quarter of the year. So thanks a lot, and we will see you guys here on the opposite side in 2025.